Yeah, I'm going to do a little demo on how to make pour-over coffee because people were interested after my talk in how to make coffee better than the way they're making it now. So the first important rule that I already violated is don't grind your coffee until the absolute last second that you can. Another good one is have fresh boiling water. You want it to be slightly off the boil, but you basically want it to be freshly boiled. So the reason I have this scale set up here is that the easiest way to tell how much water you've poured into the system is that 1 milliliter of water weighs 1 gram. And so if you have a scale that you can tare that is at gram precision, that's going to be the best way for you to tell how much water you've poured in. And that's important because when you're making coffee, there's lots of things going into and out of the system at various points. Like for instance, right now, what I'm doing is rinsing the filter. That's important to get the filter to adhere to whatever coffee maker you're using, and also just because there are a lot of byproducts in paper from when it's made at the mill. There's dyes, there's bleaches, stuff that you don't want in your coffee. It probably tastes funky. Once you've got it down in there, you can just kind of swish the water around, pour it off somewhere. I like to pour it off very neatly, as you can see, into my mug to warm it up. This is just a disaster. The specific coffee maker that I'm using right here is called a Chemex. It's been around since like the 50s. They're pretty good. I also like the Hario V2. It's a glass stripper that you can get on a mug top. But basically the deal is I'm making 1/3 of a liter of coffee right here, or 200 milliliters. And the basic rule of thumb is you want about 60 grams of beans to every liter of coffee, to every liter of water. And if you have that ratio, you can divide it. So since I'm making 1/3 of a liter, right, I want 1/3 of 60 grams, which is 20 grams. So I have 20 grams of coffee here. I'm going to go ahead and add it in and tare the scale so that now I can tell how much water I'm pouring in, basically. So the first step of making pour-over coffee is what's called the pre-infusion. Some people call it the bloom, and if you guys want to come up here and look and smell, that would probably be the best way to take this in. The idea in the pre-infusion is just to soak the grounds evenly and let them off gas. Because when coffee is roasted, a lot of carbon dioxide gets trapped under the skin of the bean. And it's not as dramatic with this coffee because this coffee is kind of a couple weeks old, but if you have freshly roasted coffee, you'll see the surface of the grounds kind of bubbling and roiling, and the whole surface will kind of bloom up. And that's why it's called the bloom. And you want to let the bloom sit for about 30 seconds to a minute until it's kind of sunken in on itself. That gives the coffee a chance to off gas, and it gets a lot of nasty crap that you probably don't want in your coffee off gassed out into the air before you do the main infusion. So that's what I'm waiting on right now. I talked to you guys, I've basically waited long enough. So at this point, you can go ahead and pour in. I like to use a gooseneck kettle. This Hario kettle that I'm using here is a really popular one, but it's also kind of silly expensive. You can get a lot cheaper ones on Amazon. In fact, there's one that a company makes that I have at home that is like an electric kettle that boils and also has the gooseneck arm. And you pretty much want to pour up until you get to the amount of water desired. You can do all kinds of fancy pour patterns. With some coffee makers it matters, with some it doesn't. The Chemex, there's a seal between the filter and the glass, so it doesn't really matter so much. All the water's coming out the bottom. With some of them, like the Hario, the glass holds the filter up off of the glass because there's little ridges, and so there's water actually coming out the sides of the filter in addition to the bottom. And in that case, it's important that you pour in the middle so that when the water goes out, it infuses through the coffee on the side. But when I say important, I mean it'll probably taste fine either way. And that's a lot of... The reason I wanted to come and do this is show you that really all you got to do is pour the water in. There's a lot of people that make this kind of coffee making scary and intimidating because they want you to think they're super, super cool for being able to make coffee really well. It's pretty simple. You measure out the coffee to the right ratio, you let it bloom or pre-infuse, and then you pour the rest in. So in a minute here, we'll have some tasty coffee, and you guys can grab like some little cups if you want to have some. I don't think I really have any more to say, other than when it's done, you just take the filter out, toss it in the trash, or compost. Yeah, if you have compost at home, which is one of the reasons I like paper filters. The end. Awesome.